What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. So Bungie recently discussed Armor 2.0, something that's basically going to add more RPG elements to the game, which I'm all for. I want to see more builds, I want to see more choices being made in the game, I want to see more of that in Destiny going forward. But I do have a couple things that I want to talk about with Armor 2.0. So first of all, if you're not aware of what Armor 2.0 actually is, it's basically going to be the ability for players to add multiple mods to gear. So if you look at the mods that are in the game currently, most of those mods mainly focus on cooldowns, like grenade cooldowns, ability cooldowns. You have your reload perks, you have your aiming perks, you have your unflinching perks, a lot of stuff that affects abilities and weapons for the most part. So if you look at those mods aren't really impactful to builds. They're more so impactful to weapon usage, abilities, which you already have, just getting them faster, but they don't really make your abilities more effective. They don't make them stronger. They don't change the way your abilities work. Things that can truly switch up builds, right? Make them more dynamic, make them more impactful within the sandbox. But we still have to see what exactly Armor 2.0 is going to bring in terms of mods. They didn't mention anything about any types of mods that we're going to see. They did mention we are going to get new mods. There are a bunch of mods that I'd like to see go, especially in this Armor 2.0 coming up. Like, I don't want to see cooldown mods. I don't want to see super mods, because we're also getting back intellect, strength, and discipline. Now, when they announced that that's also coming back, I was pretty hyped for that, because it's not just replacing what we currently have with resilience, recovery, and mobility. It's going to be added on top of that. So now we're going to be able to get armor that's going to provide cooldowns, kind of like what you were looking for at D1, you know, when we used to chase armor with tier 12, you know, rolls and things like that, looking for the most optimal cooldowns possible. So that's gonna be good for the grind, at least when players are starting to look for gear. You're gonna be looking for, do I want my super to cool down faster, my grenades and things like that. So that's gonna be good for armor grind. But if you still keep the perks, the mods, in my opinion, that's gonna kind of make that redundant and irrelevant, because essentially you'll be able to say, okay, I got a good enough roll of this, and I don't really need to chase anymore, simply because I have all these mods that are going to cool me down. So it kind of doesn't make sense to go further chasing gear. So hopefully that's not something we have to deal with. They didn't mention that. It's just something I'm pointing out. So it may or may not happen, but I'd like to see different mods. For example, maybe mods that change the way your grenades work, in a sense. So you have grenades like void wall, maybe lengthening your void wall, or increasing the time that your grenade lasts, shortening your roaming super timer for more damage, things like that, right? Something more dynamic. There's a whole bunch of them. I'm just flying off stuff off the top of my head. I don't have any of this stuff written down, but these are just ideas that, you know, I'm thinking I would like to see at least in the game going forward, right? With different builds and such. Like, you guys can drop a comment down below. Let me know, what kind of mods do you want to see? What kind of changes do you want these mods to bring to the game, right? Because if we're thinking about builds, we got to think about unique styles of play. And unique styles of play don't just come from cooldowns, right? Unique styles of play come from changing up the way that the game already works. And now, you know, on top of these new mods that we're going to get, and the ability to slot multiple mods, you know, throughout our entire armor set, you also have the artifact, which they mentioned. Now, the artifact is something that's returning from D1, but in D2, it's more so looking like an extra layer of abilities that we'll have to maybe choose from. Who knows, maybe, I don't know if they said we'll be able to choose a certain amount of perks, or if all of them will be active, or whatever the case may be, or how these mods, you know, work in the game. But the way it looks like, at least for now, is that we're gonna have this item that will have a bunch of mods in it, and we'll be allowed to basically equip maybe, you know, 2 or 3 or 4 of them, depending on how crazy they really want to make this. And those mods, in my opinion, should be able to boost up whatever your current build is with the perks and the mods that you have on your roll of armor. So that's kind of how I see it working. in terms of how that affects the sandbox, you got to think about the activities that we have. So raids, you have DPS, you have healing now that we have Lumina in the game. You have super regeneration for solo players with bad juju. You have team play, stacking damage with weapons like Outbreak Perfected, where the nanites stack for your team. There's different kinds of things you can make. So you have healers, you have DPS, you also have tanks, maybe abilities that boost your teammates' shields. Well of Radiance kind of does that right now, but I'd love to see Titans regain that role, right? Like in D1 when they had the bubble, it was awesome because you'd pop in and out the bubble, you'd get a bonus, you'd get an overshield, you'd go out there and tank a little bit. So I'd like to see that put in a little bit more, right? Give the warlocks the healer role, a little bit of shielding, but make the shielding, make the tanking role for the Titans, right? At least in PvE. How all this stuff balances out in PvP, I'm gonna discuss in another video, but this is gonna let's mainly focus on PvE with this one, right? We want to see, some pretty unique builds. We want to see some powerful builds, but we also want to see difficult challenges, right? Because it's no fun to have all these abilities and just burn through content, right? We want to see content that challenges us as players and forces us to use unique builds, right? We want to see content that forces us to try new things. Currently in this game, as it stands, the game, you hear a lot of players say it all the time, Destiny's too easy, right? The content's too easy. And for most people, the average player, they may hear that and say, this game isn't easy, I have a tough time doing it. But my interpretation of that is not that the game is simple and you can just beat it easily. It's that the content doesn't push you or require you to play a certain way or do certain things. It doesn't require roles from its players, right? Everybody, when you go in and you're making a build, you're not prioritizing a healer, you're prioritizing a weapon, right? You're saying everybody get your Swarm of the Raven, your mountaintop, right? You're saying get your DPS weapons. But we do say yes, get a well for keeping people alive and things like that. So it's very light, but the game doesn't require any more than that. So we want to see more of that going forward in Shadowkeep. And I'm hopeful that Armor 2.0 and the artifact, and hopefully whatever other surprises they have in store for us, all of these things can kind of combine to create a sandbox, an environment that requires us as players to say, I'm gonna go for this build, I'm gonna go for that build. When we raid, we need 2 healers, tanks, we need DPS, things like that, and whatever other type of unique builds they can come up with, for solo players, maybe boosting damage to their nades, like I said, maybe reducing the timer on a roaming super to increase the power of it, because roaming supers for the most part are pretty powerful, right? But you don't use them for DPS, so maybe doing something like that, switching up the way that things work. And we also have to see whatever this sandbox update is that we're going to get leading into Shadowkeep, because there's a lot of things that need to be tuned up, which I'm not going to talk about in this video. I'm going to end this video here, but I will talk about some things that I'd like to see tuned up going forward into Shadowkeep. So if you guys want to see that video, stay tuned to the channel. Be sure to drop a like on this video, guys. Subscribe. Thank you guys for watching. And yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Sorry for the audio in the background, by the way. The cars, it's probably pretty loud, but I'm trying to speak kind of loud. I can't do much about outside, but I try. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.